Welcome back, Saturitas, to Monster Mash by FredMSlonkier. Tonight, we all know that Applejack can trust any pony. That her ability to see the truth that lies beyond our faces gives her the great experience of learning how to be trusting. But what if our friends start acting weirdly? What if our friends aren't acting normal? Will we still be able to trust them? Will we be able to trust others? Find out tonight's tale of Applejack, one of the herd. Harvest time at Sweet Apple Acres was always the busiest time of year for Applejack and the rest of the Apple clan. That wasn't to say he ever had a day off, exactly. There was always something that needed doing on the farm. Planting crops or tilling soil, or making repairs and pulling weeds. Sales went on years round as well, whether they be fresh apples or apple-based baked goods. Still, there were natural rhythms in the pace of farm life, and harvest time was when they all went out. Some ponies might not understand, therefore, why Applejack was planning on attending a sleepover at Twilight Sparkle's house that night. Those ponies hadn't been around for last year's near-disastrous Applebuck season, when Applejack had nearly scuppered not only her own harvest, but all of Ponyville through a combination of fatigue and bullheadedness. Big Macintosh was healthy this year, but neither Applejack or Twilight were taking chances on a repeat of the episode. So when Twilight had suggested Applejack join her for a night of stargazing, Applejack had readily accepted. That didn't mean she was going to laze the day away, though. She set up her stall in Ponyville's bustling market square, and was hawking the first of the year's crop to any pony who wanted some. Sweet Apple Acres produced some of the best apples in Equestria, and after several months of only canned apples and applesauce, ponies were practically chomping at the bit to get them fresh. Him and Applejack could charge a premium for these apples, lowering the price later in the season as supply caught up to demand. One of the many lessons Granny Smith had taught her about running the family farm. Applejack finished up ringing a customer, then looked to the next pony in line, surprised to see it was so frazzled-looking Twilight Sparkle. "Lion six, Twilight! What happened to you?" She wondered. Could have been anything serious, though. The unicorn was still smiling. "Oh, I was up late last night watching the meteor shower," Twilight answered, confirming Applejack's suspicions. "It was incredible! You should have been there to see it!" "Thought you'd say tonight was going to be the best night for that, Sugar Cube," Applejack replied. She wasn't sure how meteor showers worked, to be honest. No pony, not even the princesses, was responsible for scheduling them. But nonetheless, they seemed to happen about the same time each year, according to Twilight. "Oh, I'm sure it will be!" Twilight said. "But last night was just amazing. I've never seen so many Aranoids in one night." "Or what?" "There was even one that looked like it came right down on your farm," Twilight continued, oblivious to Applejack's confusion. "We should go out there and see if there are any meteorites." "Whoa there, Twilight!" Applejack said, reaching out to put a hoof on the unicorn's shoulder. "This is not exactly the time to go sightseeing around the farm. Besides, I've got work to do. I reckon you need a nap if we're going to do this slumber party thing." Twilight faltered slightly at that. "I suppose you're right." She then brightened up again. "Besides, if we look tomorrow, they'll probably be even more to find." Applejack sighed. Well, they still had some fallow land, even at this time of year. They supposed it wouldn't hurt to let Twilight poke around a bit, to find some space rocks, or what have you. "All right, you can come back with me to the farm tomorrow, and we'll see what turns up. Now, if you don't mind, you're holding up the paying customers." Twilight looked around her at the ponies eager to stock up on apples, laughed with embarrassment, and put some bits on the counter. "Can you bring a bushel by tonight? Pinkie Pie and Rainbow Dash are coming too, and I should stock up." Applejack nodded, sweeping the bits into the register, already making a mental note of which apples to set aside. Only the freshest and best for her friends. "One for the road?" She added, setting an apple in front of Twilight, who bit into it right away. "Oh, even better than last year," Twilight pronounced, her eyes forming happy little half-moons, then began working through the crowd back toward the library. Applejack, pleased with the compliment, turned her attention to the next pony in line. "Hey, Applejack!" a familiar voice said. It was getting on toward afternoon, and Applejack's sales had only picked up as the day went on. But eventually, she put up the back at 30 sign and settled down for a break, eating the lunch Granny Smith had packed for her, and tucking her hat over her eyes for a brief nap. Naturally, Rainbow Dash had chosen that moment to stop by her stall. "Something I can help you with, Rainbow?" she began, tipping her hat back, then stopped, irritation fading to confusion. Applejack had always been a straight shooter, and it didn't take some fancy necklace to prove it. She'd never been able to get away with anything as a foal. Her face and voice giving the game away no matter how hard she tried.
I didn't learn anything. I was a good pony all along.
At first, she said Granny Smith was just that good at spotting a lie. But since he noticed how easily Apple Bloom could pull one over the Apple matriarch, and how quickly her fibs fell apart when confronted by her older sister, Applejack realized he had a knack for the truth. Never been a fanciful pony, but sometimes, when somebody tried to lie to her, it felt like a physical presence, an aura of wrongness about them. Rainbow Dazzle was giving that off now, as he hadn't even said anything.
Just thought I'd stop by,
Des said, oblivious to Applejack's reaction.
Maybe pick up some apples, see how you're doing.
What? Think Maggot just chase you out of our trees?
Applejack snapped. She couldn't help it.
The sensation she was experiencing was extremely uncomfortable. It wasn't even like Rainbow Dazzle's lying about the reasons he came over. It was more like that time that used cart salesman tried to con Caramel into buying a wagon with a cracked axle, where he knew something was up even before he opened his mouth. It wasn't a sensation she was used to coming from a pony who, for all her faults, seldom bothered hiding anything. Rainbow Dazzle looked hurt.
I'm here, AJ!
Case in point.
You think I'm the sort of pony just to moose off you year-round? Besides, Big Macintosh is working that empty field.
Which is true, but raised an obvious question. You would know that anyhow?
Flew over there this morning,
Rainbow Dazzle replied, smirking.
He found some big rock there and wanted me to take a look. Looks pretty cool.
Do you know what he did with it? Applejack wondered, despite the sensation gnawing her skin. Maybe Twilight would get her space rock after all.
Nah, Daz replied. I was just passing by anyway. Wanted to see Fluttershy before she went to her spa thing.
The Pegasus' disgust with primping and preening was obvious. Usually. Applejack was rather discovered it was significantly harder to pick up on that alarm going off in her head.
Rainbow Dash,
Applejack said.
I really need to get some rest if I'm going to be ready for tonight's slumber party.
She hoped Dash would take the hint and go away. Thankfully, it seems he did.
Oh yeah, that falling star thing. I need to get a nap myself. Hey, see you then!
She gathered herself, then zoomed off in her usual prismatic fashion, taking the uneasy sensation with her. Most of it, anyway. Applejack was left wondering who had set it off in the first place. Maybe she was coming down with something. Applejack had reopened her stand a bit later than she meant to, the odd encounter with Rainbow Dash having made it difficult for her to squeeze a nap in. But it hadn't hurt business any. Customers from all over Ponyville were only too willing to wait however long it took to get fresh Sweet Apple Acres apples. For a few hours, she even been able to put the incident behind her in the hustle and bustle of sales and conversation. Then Lily stepped by, and Applejack got that weird crawling sensation again. She couldn't figure out why. The pink pony had been polite and well-mannered, doing nothing more than untoward than buying a peck of apples and complimenting Applejack on the quality of the year's crop. But something about her, the way she moved, the focus of her eyes, the timbre of her voice, was causing warning bells to ring in Applejack's head. She held Lily as quickly as she could, relieved but concerned when Lily took the strange feelings with her. Since then, Applejack had came across 3 more ponies who gave her the same uncomfortable vibe. She was so used to her talent for truth-finding, picking out lies that she carefully analyzed every scrap of conversation they had with her, trying to figure out what they could possibly be hiding from her. Were they planning a surprise party for her and nervous about it? That didn't make sense. Aside from living in Ponyville, none of them had anything in common. None of them, aside from Rainbow Dash, were particularly close to her, and none of them were party-planning ponies. By the time she closed up shop for the evening, Applejack was a bit jumpy. She'd never been prone to paranoia, not like some of her friends had gotten, but she couldn't help but feeling there was something going on in Ponyville. Something dangerous, and she needed to get to the bottom of it as soon as possible. The only problem was, she hadn't the slightest idea how.
Twilight, have you noticed anything weird about the ponies in town?
Twilight chuckled at that for some reason.
I seem to recall saying all the ponies in town are crazy my first night in Ponyville.
Applejack sauntered her hoof on the floor of the library, glaring at the unicorn.
I'm being serious here, Twilight!
Applejack smiled sheepishly. Sorry, Applejack. I've been in the library most of the day as usual. I don't think I see anything strange today, though. Why you ask? Applejack sighed. I don't know what it is, but some of the ponies in town have just felt wrong. Wrong? Twilight echoed, tilting her head. At least he was taking Applejack seriously. I don't know how to explain it, Applejack said, pacing the floor. I just get this feeling that, like they're lying to me. All the time, even when they're just standing there. First Rainbow Dash, then Lily. It's like there's some other pony pretending to be some pony I know. For a moment, she felt satisfaction in having identified the sensation, but it didn't last. The implications of that were true, even more disturbing. Twilight Sparkle considered this. Well, they could be changelings. Well, there are spells you could use to disguise yourself as another pony. Hiding the cutie mark is the hardest part. Did you see their cutie marks? Applejack nodded. I know a spell that breaks illusions, and I could look and see if maybe there's something else that might make you feel uneasy around other ponies. I never heard of a disease that makes ponies feel untrustworthy, but we've run into stranger things. You might want to check me out while you're at it, Applejack said, smiling with relief. Twilight was a smart cookie. If there was anything to this, she figured it out. I wouldn't want to be coming down with something this time of year. Twilight nodded. I'll have a look at my books, but in the meantime, why don't you go ahead and pick a spot for the sleepover? Pinkie Pie and Rainbow Dash aren't here yet, but... The two turned to look at the front door. Applejack swallowed, feeling that sensation of wrongness again, even though she couldn't see who was on the other side. Hey, Twilight! Your telescope's blocking the balcony! Let me in! Rainbow Dash called. Applejack was seized with a moment of terror. Don't let her in! She hissed. Twilight looked at her strangely, then opened the door for the Pegasus, who sauntered in as if nothing were the matter. Thanks, Rainbow Dash said, carrying a tray of baked goods into the library, hovering to free her legs. Pinkie can't make it. Some sort of party emergency. I did get a lot out of her. She sent me with these over, though. Well, that's very thoughtful of her, Twilight said, smiling and taking the tray with her magic. Go ahead and grab a spot upstairs, and we'll be right up. Rainbow Dash nodded, soon upstairs, leaving Twilight alone with Applejack. Doesn't seem abnormal, Twilight said, shrugging at her friend, who could only smile weakly back. Can you check into her anyway? She asked, relieved when Twilight nodded. No problem. Let's get these upstairs. The evening had been torture. They had a late dinner, prepared by Spike, spent some time hanging out and talking about recent events in Ponyville. Then, when the light permitted, moved to Twilight's balcony and watched the meteor shower. It had been every bit as spectacular as Twilight said it would be. White light slashing across the sky again and again, some seeming to almost touch the earth. Applejack hadn't seen a meteor shower since he was a little filly, too busy with farm work, she supposed. Twilight said that, based on her preliminary observations, this was going to be the best one in a century. But Applejack couldn't enjoy it. Rainbow Dash wasn't acting any differently than she usually did. She joked, she bragged, she laughed. She even suggested flying up and catching a meteorite, which Twilight had only been able to talk her out of, pointing at just how hot a falling meteor would be. In every single respect, she acted exactly like Applejack would have expected her to. Not a single thing OOC. So, why did Applejack feel like Dash couldn't be trusted alone in a room with either of them? She made up an increasingly flimsy series of excuses to join Twilight she had left the room, and if Rainbow Dash noted, she gave no sign of doing so. Twilight hadn't been able to help, unfortunately. She could firstly cast a number of spells at both Rainbow Dash and Applejack throughout the evening, been able to find nothing wrong with either pony. No reason for the farmer's knowing unease. It was maddening. When finally it came time for them to settle down for the evening, Applejack was seriously considering begging off going back to Sweet Apple Acres, anything to get away from Rainbow Dash. But that would mean leaving Twilight alone with her, which, even in the face of all evidence to the contrary, Applejack couldn't bring herself to do so. She set down her own sleeping bag, up between Twilight and Rainbow Dash, more willing to risk herself than her friend, and tried her best to ignore the sensation screaming in her ear to get some sleep. She failed. Hey, AJ, you asleep? Applejack flinched at the sound of voice. Trying to be, she snapped. There was a pause. Then Rainbow Dash responded subduedly. AJ,
You've been acting weird, all right. Is there something wrong?
Nothing's wrong. Applejack lied. She flinched again, hearing how oblivious the lie was.
Back me up on this, Twilight,
Des said. There was no response.
Twilight?
And there was a pause.
Guess he's asleep already.
We should get some sleep, too, Applejack suggested, hoping to change the topic. No such luck.
AJ, all night long you've been acting as jumpy and twitchy as Fluttershy trying out for the Wonderbolts. I'm getting worried. You sure you haven't been working too hard?
Maybe I have been, Applejack stammered, grasping at an excuse.
So get some rest, huh? Hey, Dad said, I know something that'll help you relax. It's an old trick my mom taught me when I couldn't sleep. Just close your eyes and relax.
In the darkness, Applejack could hear Rainbow Dash scooting out of her sleeping bag and moving slowly, closer, every little sound driving a new note of tension in her thoughts. She had to fight the urge to scream, thrash out as her best friend moved ever closer. She squeezed her thighs tight in silent terror, only to a moment later as the fear of not seeing it coming. Rainbow Dash's head was right above hers, Pegasus' mouth open for a warm, wet kiss on the lips. Applejack twisted her head desperately, breaking a hoof out of her sleeping bag and socking Dash on the cheek, sending her falling backward and sideways to land roughly on the floor, startling Twilight awake.
What? You hit me!
Dash protested, cradling her cheek. The light flicked on a second layer as Twilight hit the lamps with her magic.
You tried to kiss me!
Applejack argued, wriggling out of her own sleeping bag, adrenaline jangling.
What? I did not!
Rainbow Dash replied, much to Applejack's relief. The weird crawling sensation briefly intensified.
That's a lie!
She shouted, confidence in her own ability surging and giving her strength to voice her fears.
I thought there was something weird about you all day, and now I'm sure of it! What are you hiding? I'm not hiding anything!
Dash responded, looking over to an increasingly concerned Twilight.
Another lie!
Applejack said, advancing on the Pegasus. What are you trying to pull?
And what about Lily, Ginger Gold, and Twinkle? Are they in on it too?
Rainbow Dash's eyes widened. A tale obvious even enough for Twilight to pick up on it.
You're crazy,
she shouted, but she wasn't convincing either of them now. A sudden thought and fear struck Applejack. Where's Planky Pie? She demanded, moving face to face with the Pegasus.
What did you do to her?
She wasn't prepared to be bucked in the face. Rainbow Dash had surprising strength in her legs, considering the Pegasus almost never walked anywhere if she could help it, and Applejack was thrown into a tangled heap of legs. Twilight gasped, and in her distraction she was unable to stop Dash from taking off, smashing one of the windows open and taking off into the night. Applejack picked herself up, staring in astonishment at the space where her friend had been, and while Twilight reached out with a spell to close and lock the window, then, after only a second's pause, locked each of the other windows and doors in the library.
Looks like you were right about her, Twilight said, but that doesn't tell us what's going on. We need to find Planky Pie, Applejack said. She might be hurt.
Twilight nodded, climbing out of bed.
Let's see it isn't. We need to warn her not to trust Rainbow Dash.
As Twilight woke Spike and gave him strict instructions not to let any pony into the library without her express permission, Applejack stared at the window Dash had flown out through, and at the stars beyond. What had happened to her friend to make her do what she'd done? What had she been trying to do?
They're coming for you! They're here! They're coming for you! You're next! You're next!
Look, I never get to do a Pod People reference. The Sugar Cube corner wasn't far, though traveling there at night was eerie, especially with both ponies jumping at any shadow that might be shaped like Rainbow Dash. The streets were deserted at this time of night, and the moonlight cast weird shadows off of every building. The uncertainty of what they find at their destination, anything from a badly injured Pinkie Pie to an ambush for Rainbow Dash, only served to further shatter their nerves. The two hesitated at the doorstep, then moved by slight agreement, Applejack watching out for anyone approaching. Twilight moving to the door to thump on vigorously.
Pinkie!
She yelled.
Mrs. Cake, open up! It's an emergency!
The door swung open only a second later, the lights in the store coming on, revealing a confused Pinkie Pie.
Ooh! Is it a party emergency?
She wondered. Twilight said relieved. Thank goodness, she began.
We were afraid something happened to...
She felt a thump on her shoulder and turned to look at Applejack, who was staring past her at Pinkie Pie, eyes wide with horror. Twilight, reacting a second too slow, swung her head back toward Pinkie Pie and got a full kiss on the lips. Suddenly, Twinkie. Applejack screamed, grabbing Twilight and trying to pull her away from the suddenly amorous Pinkie Pie. But the pink pony had a grip like a leech and refused to be dislodged. There was something horrible about the sight. No romance or affection in the gesture. Just an obscene groping, cheeks descending as if she were blowing into Twilight's mouth. After a struggle that seemed to take forever, but only took a few seconds, Pinkie Pie suddenly let Twilight go, sending Applejack stumbling backwards to land on her rear, and Twilight falling to the ground where she stood. She began coughing violently. "What did you do to her?" Applejack said, staring Pinkie in increasing revulsion. "What did you do?"
You silly filly,
Pinkie replied, her sing-song tone terrifying normal, smile as ever.
You keep thinking about deaths quiet spookers, but it's okay. I understand.
"You do?" Applejack replied despite herself, pushing herself to her hooves, unable to look away from the pink pony.
You've been super busy playing our surprise party, and you've been feeling left out. I should have realized sooner. You're good at finding secrets.
She smiled broadly.
But that's okay. We'll just have to start the party sooner. I think we have enough ponies now anyway.
She paused and glanced down.
Isn't that right, Twilight?
Applejack's gaze fell. Her horror grew. Twilight was standing up now, looking a bit wobbly, but essentially unhurt. If Applejack had happened past a second or two later, she wouldn't have seen anything wrong. Indeed, having been right there, she realized all she saw two ponies were being more affectionate to each other than usual, then a brief coughing fit. The sort any pony might get, it mean nothing. The sort a thing no pony would think of too much until it happened to them. Twilight Sparkle, the thing that had been Twilight Sparkle, looked at her.
It's okay, Applejack, she said. She didn't hurt me. I know what's going on now.
She paused, offered her most reassuring smile.
It's all right.
Applejack ran. She didn't know what she was going to do. She hadn't been able to think of anything but getting out of Ponyville. How many ponies were already infected? How long would it take to infect the rest? They'd been careful so far, not wanting to raise suspicions. Now that she knew she was onto them, were there enough of them to just drag ponies out of their beds, change them wholesale? How often could they infect other ponies? Did they have to build up some level of poison? Or could it happen as fast as they could go door to door? And how long would it remain confined to Ponyville? They didn't get a lot of visitors, but even one would be enough. One infected pony making his way to Manhattan. Boom, boom. Dum, dum. Applejack stumbled at another horrifying thought. Twilight. She could go home. Ask Spike to open the door for her, or just force it open with her magic. Even if he was suspicious, she could just grab him with her magic and make her kiss her.
Dear Princess Celestia, I've discovered something I'd like to discuss with you privately. Please come to Ponyville at your earliest convenience. Your faithful student.
She could see the buildings of Sweet Apple Acres up ahead. It was the middle of the night, and they'd all be deep asleep. But she'd get them up. They had to figure something out. Fortify the farmhouse, maybe, or find somewhere to hide. It wouldn't be easy, but she couldn't abandon her family. There was a light on, she realized, on the porch. She could see Big Magatos silhouetted in the light. He must have had trouble sleeping. Good. She felt better for her brother at his side. He found some big rock there. Wanted me to take a look. Looked pretty cool. She came to a stop, blood going cold. No. It couldn't be.
Applejack?
She spun around, nearly shrinking under sight. Twilight was standing there in the road behind her, obviously having teleported to follow. Pinkie Pie and Rarity weren't far behind, running out to catch up with both of them. And beyond them, Applejack could see the lights of Ponyville turning on one by one.
Applejack, I know you're scared, but we just want to help you. Just stay there for a moment and listen to me,
Twilight soothed. Applejack turned and ran. She knew that she was running toward didn't matter. All that mattered was staying far away from the infected moment, even a second longer. She wasn't surprised to see Rainbow Dash appear up ahead, blocking the road past the farmhouse. But her heart sank a little more to see Fluttershy there with her, staring at Applejack's way with eyes that had no right to look that kind.
Applejack, please stop!
Fluttershy called, but Applejack didn't. Instead, turning in towards the farmhouse, to the silhouette there, hoping to guess how she was wrong. She wasn't. Big Macintosh looked at her with soft, puzzled eyes, gently wondering, "Something go wrong at the slumber party, sis?" He was every inch of him the sweet, kind brother who helped take care of her since she was a foal, and he was wrong. All wrong.
Big Macintosh, is Applejack back already?
A soft voice wondered. No, 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 not that! Anything but that! Please, Celestia, not her! Not her! Eva Bloom ventured out on the porch, white sleep in her eyes. Scootaloo was there, too, and Sleigh Bell. Of course they were. Eva Bloom had helped them run the farm that morning. Then she probably gone straight to her fellow Cutie Mark Crusaders. Told them about something cool she saw. Had them close their eyes so she could show them, too. If Applejack hadn't that slumber party to go to, she could have been on the farm. Big Macintosh would have found her, taking a break from apple bucking. Said he found something odd in the field. Was she mind taking a look? Maybe he had just approached her on some pretext, and before she knew it, he had pressed his lips to hers. AJ? It was Rainbow Dash again. She turned, heart hollow to see the inevitable. They all caught up to her by now. Rainbow Dash, Rarity, Pinkie Pie, Fluttershy, and Twilight Sparkle, all of them looking like she was the one who was sick. Like she was the one who was wrong. Maybe she was. For all she knew, she was the only one left. It doesn't hurt, AJ, Rainbow Dash said, gazing intently at her. It feels kind of gross at first, and you want to spit it out, but then well, you understand. They don't want to hurt us. They just want to live. And they need our help.
I was scared too at first,
Fluttershy said. Was Angel infected? Were her other animals? Applejack didn't see them. Didn't know.
but they don't want us to do anything bad. They just want homes.
There's nowhere to go, sis.
Big Macintosh said from behind her.
We can't just let you leave. Other ponies might not understand. Let us help you.
There was a silent moment while other ponies watched her. Wild thoughts flew through Applejack's head, fighting them for as long as there was strength in her body, running into the Everfree and hoping he hadn't reached the Cora, finding something sharp in the barn and hurling herself on it so she could at least die on her terms.
Applejack?
She turned and saw Apple Bloom staring up at her large, innocent eyes, and all of a sudden her strength was gone. She sank to her knees, crying bitterly, knowing what was going to happen, unable to fight any longer. She could sooner tear off her own leg than hurt her precious little sister. Just clear over with, she croaked, squeezing her eyes tight. She could hear Apple Bloom stepping closer, feeling the soft breaths on her face, Scent's lips drawing close. She's never even kissed a colt. Why her? Why do they have to make her do this? Then the lips met hers. There was a surge of dust, fine, sweet sugar, like powdered sugar. She couldn't help herself. She breathed it in and began to choke and cough as Apple Bloom moved away. She staggered to her breath, trying to catch her breath, stumbling toward the farmhouse as Big Macintosh moved out of the way, as the others watched, trying not to stop her. There was no reason to now. It took surprisingly little time to clear the dust out of her lungs. She took one deep breath and then another, her senses returning her, looked at the others and waited. And waited. And realized, with a growing shocking euphoria, nothing had happened. It hadn't worked. Why hadn't it worked? She hadn't tried to fight it. She hadn't a reason to. Nobody else had been able to fight it, or they had held her as something they were sure. She was the only one. Just like she was the only one who noticed anything wrong in the first place. She could realize something had gone wrong, starting to move toward her. But before they could, she charged Scootaloo and Sleigh Bell, scrambling between them and into the farmhouse. The lights were out outside, but she lived there all her life, and knew exactly when to turn, how many steps there were to climb. She could hear her brother close behind her, knew the others would be following as well. But they slowed by turning on the lights, and trying to figure out which way they had gone. She knew exactly where she was going. So he slammed the door to her bedroom open, ran to her nightstand on the far wall, and focused her will. An innocuous-looking jewelry box opened, revealing a golden necklace with a ruby apple set in the center. The necklace rose in the air, glowing with its own light. It slapped itself against her neck, just as Big Macintosh entered the room behind her. She turned, and the eye of honesty rose, filling the room with a crimson light. He screamed, and recoiled from it as it burned his skin. As he advanced, forcing him back, out of the room, and halfway down the stairs where he turned and fled. Filled with a new hope, she followed him outside, and stopped, faced down by a knot of friends and relations, all staring at her, cringing at the light, but standing their ground. It was hurting them, but that was all. It wasn't curing them.
Applejack, don't do this, she pleaded. We can figure out why it didn't work, or lock you up until it's safe to let you out again, or something. You had to sleep sometime, AJ,
Rainbow Dash added.
Just take the necklace off, and no pony can get hurt.
Applejack could see some of the other Apple Clan now, called from the guest houses he put up when they came to help with the harvest. Big Macintosh nodded slightly to them, and he began to encircle her, cut her off from running. If they were so confident she had nowhere to run, why they were trying to stop her? She sprinted for the gap, and the others ran too, but she was faster, fueled by desperation. Caramel tried to block her now, shied away from her pendant at the last second. Only managed to butt up against her. She heard Big Macintosh yell to follow her, heard the pounding of many hooves. Twilight appeared in front of her in a flash of light. She sighed up, and the unicorn reached out with a spell, tugging at the element of honesty. She charged Twilight, breaking her concentration, knocked her to the ground, and continued to run.
I've got you now!
Rainbow Dash yelled. Poor, predictable Rainbow Dash. Couldn't help but announcing her attacks, even under alien control. Applejack ran straight for 2 steps, juked left, and a rainbow boar hurled in the field, skidding several feet before stopping. Wait. She felt something. A wrongness even more intense than that in her friends and family. It was coming from the old barn. The one that she was leaving empty until they could afford to fix it up. On a hunt, she ran toward it. The night suddenly acquired a violet glow, and Applejack's feet lost purchase on the ground. Twisted her head to Rarity, grunting with the strain of levitating her. She remembered the battle of Discord, focused her will, and fired a bolt of red at the unicorn. Rarity jerked and screamed. Her focus was lost. Applejack fell, hitting the ground running. Firefly flew up beside her and called,
Applejack, you stop this instant.
You know the problem with doing a pod person Fluttershy is that a pod person I gotta do this calm, rational voice. And there's really no difference between that voice and Fluttershy's voice. Applejack risked looking. Whatever powers had taken hold of her friend, it couldn't command a stare. She sent it sideways, buzzed Fluttershy's wings, and forced her back. She was almost at the barn now. The wrongness, the evil, like a palpable thing now, pulsing and throbbing. She just had to get through the door and Pinkie Pie popped out of it, standing on her hind legs, holding her forelegs out in a barring gesture. Applejack crashed into her, rolled across the ground, and wound up wrapped up in a party pony. She looked up from where she lay. It was no rock. It was about the size of a pony's head, gray and rough like a rock, but it was pulsing like a heart. Veins of pale blue light came out like cracks on the surface, covering it like roots. You are an insult to all rocks. They dug into the ground, spreading out for 10 feet in every direction. Luminescent blue mushrooms had sprouted from the cracks and veins. She disturbed one in her tumble, and sweet-smelling dust wafted from the cap. The others reached the door and hesitated, but she realized he wouldn't hold back much longer. Pinkie Pie managed to grab her. Elmo's ability to protect her was almost gone. So she struck. I'll work it this time you all saw the truth! She sighed, focused all of her considerable will into her necklace. A red light blazed from her throat, filling the barn. The reaction was immediate. The rock, the egg, let out a horrible shrieking noise, thrashing around as if trying to get away, pinned by its own roots. The fungus veins began to hiss and sizzle like eggs in a skillet, shriveling and backing under the assaulting element of honesty. So did too the ponies react, even the ones not actually in the barn, screaming and writhing and thrashing about as they fell, digging at the ground with their hooves. Twilight and Pinky produced a sound Applejack could have sworn couldn't come out of a living throat, and hurled herself away, landing on her back and spasming like a dying spider. Applejack didn't falter, didn't let up for a second. She poured every bit of herself into the amulet, her love of her friends, her duty to her family, her hatred of the thing that had twisted them, and most of all, that simple country wholesomeness that made her the element of honesty. She poured that power out over everything, giving, giving, and giving, until she had nothing left. Darkness took her. She woke slowly, groggily, and looked around. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. She didn't know why she was there. Had she gone to Twilight's for a sleepover? Why was she back in her own bed? Then memory came back. She saw it bolted upright, only to be pushed down by Big Macintosh.
Easy there, sis,
he said.
I think you earned another hour of rest.
She turned to look at him, and saw her friends standing by her bed, all of them blessedly normal. Not a trace of taint in any of them. That was awesome! Rainbow Dash proclaimed. You're all whoosh! And we were all like, ugh! And then the spores all like were burned out or something, and then we were all okay again! We are all okay again, right? Twilight asked, smiling a bit nervously. I think I figured out how to detect fungus from studying its remains, and I haven't found any active spores, but... Applejack nodded slyly, smiling at Twilight's look of relief. How are you feeling? Fireside wondered, and Applejack considered that. Like a spell not running the leaves, she replied, but a lot better than I was expecting to feel, all things considered. I have to admit, I think you're taking this whole ordeal better than I have, Verity said, looking grim. You're thinking about kissing and it's making me ill. Everybody's kind of jumpy, Piggy added, her own cheeriness present, but subdued. I was going to say, hey, we're not pod ponies anymore, party, but no pony wanted to come. Applejack gave Pinky an odd look, wondering what pods had to do with it or anything, and then said, well, I can't blame him, Pinky. Trust takes a lot longer to heal than it does to bruise. I'm just glad I was able to stop it. As he paused and continued, I don't know I'll take it to be able to catch ponies in a fit for granted, but I guess there's more to it than that. Never thought I had to use an element of harmony without the rest of you as my guide. Ooh, I wonder if that means I can shoot lacquer beams, Pinky wondered. I can all be pew, zip, 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 zip. Like a balloon zipper, you'll be happy. You won't know why. It might not hurt to try it out, Twilight said, putting a hoof on Pinky to steady her exuberant prancing, under controlling conditions. I didn't even know the elements of harmony worked by themselves. Trust me, they do. Oh, bad memory, Sunset? Yes. Applejack sighed softly, sinking back to her bed. I don't think I'm going to take the rest of the day off. She paused. Well, more at least. Don't suppose you made any breakfast? She looked at Big Macintosh, but it was Pinky who answered, producing a tureen without, somehow, spilling its contents. Sure did! That's the thing for the hero of the day, a big bowl of mustard soup. There was a shocked silence. Just kidding, it's hot applesauce. She set this dish onto the ground and started dishing some up. Pinky, the one thing I don't get is how they got you. I would have bet money you already had an alien brain. Applejack saw it, laughed, squeezing her eyes shut in tears relief. That was Rainbow Dash, all right. The genuine oracle. Well, wasn't that an interesting story? It's so amazing how much trust we could put into a simple kiss. Of course, we all know these pods couldn't possibly get the Princess of the Night. What's that, dear Rita? Are you really that afraid? Well, don't worry. I'm fine, but just in case, how about you come here and give Luna a kiss? I'm never letting Luna host these things again.